Good morning. Chris Lee and Alfred Ezman of Southeastern 16 here to talk some SEC baseball today. Alfred and I are going to start. I think Jay Greeson and Graham Doty are going to both join us a little bit later in the show, but for now, it's just the two of us. And we're going to hop into one of the bigger non-conference matchups of the early part of the college baseball season. That is Florida and Florida State. And then later we're going to get into some early season surprises, some things that have caught our eye, good and bad. But first of all, Alfred, thanks for joining me today. Not a lot of exciting Tuesday games in the SEC so far, but Florida State is always one that you circle just because of the rivalry aspect. Today we're going to circle it too because of the quality of play. These are two definite Omaha contenders, it would seem, from our vantage point here early in March. And Florida State, boy, Florida's got a run this week. Gators face the only two unbeaten teams left in the country, to my recollection, in Florida State today, and then Tennessee and Knoxville this weekend.
Yeah, pretty good RPI week, right? For the Florida Gators, they can get a lot of damage done. This rivalry is big. I mean, it transcends not only baseball, but all of college sports, Florida and Florida State. Obviously, this year right now, though, Florida State, one of two unbeaten teams in the country, along with Tennessee. And then, yeah, both these teams, I mean, they're Omaha-looking teams right now, and they're at least, I know their rankings are everywhere. There are at least two top 10 teams in the country going at it. So, super excited for this one. This is definitely one of, I think, the bigger midweeks we've gotten all season, if not the biggest one we've gotten all season.
Yeah, looking at Florida State's schedule, I'm trying to see if they've beaten teams with the winning record that Florida State has beaten. Jacksonville at 8-7, North Florida at 9-7. And yeah, I think that's it. So the Seminoles haven't exactly taken on a killer schedule so far. Now, look, going, what are they, 16-0 against anybody, is 15-0 is impressive against anybody. So there's that. Florida's faced a little tougher schedule, taking 2 or 3 over Miami, which is always notable. But, the toughest part of Florida's schedule is to come. And I think Billy Barlow is taking the hill for the Gators today. Is that correct?
That is correct. Confirmed.
Yeah. What else stands out to you in terms of this particular matchup today?
Well, I think that's a key thing, right? Florida State really has not. I wonder where their strength of schedule or RPI is right now, just because they haven't really played anyone. They haven't played a power conference opponent yet, so that's going to be key. I think their toughest win is probably South Florida. If I had to pick one out. That being said, though, I mean, they have guys who have hit the ball really well. You have Miles Bailey, a talented freshman they have hitting above 400. Gage Harrelson's a Texas Tech transfer they have hitting above 400 and playing really well for them. Home run wise, you look at the power, 21 homers this year, so nothing too crazy. But you got to circle guys like Alex Lodi, excuse me if I pronounced that wrong, and Max Williams, who have hit 4 and 5 each. So both of those guys totaling 9. Drew Farrow has 3 as well. So there's certain guys in the lineup you have to circle for power. It's going to be key to see how Billy Barlow manages them. I mean, you look at his last start against Florida Atlantic. That was a bounce back midweek win after the team lost to UCF this past week. He went 5 1/3, gave up 4 hits, but struck out 5. So pretty solid start for him. And he also gave up no earned runs during that game. Florida State is tougher than Florida Atlantic. That's pretty obvious, but that's going to be key. I think if you could see Billy Barlow go deep in this game, that's really going to help these Gators get the win here, especially against this lineup that has some potency throughout it.
Who do we think Florida will use out of the pen first?
I think my main thought, I wouldn't be surprised to see Christian Rodriguez. I think they can go. I've seen them go to a little bit. Nico Jansen's has been a midweek reliever as well. Those would be my top 2 picks, I'd say, on anybody. I think they'd save guys like maybe Barbary for this weekend. Philpott. I haven't seen a lot of Philpott. Actually, when I've watched Florida, I haven't seen any Philpott. So I don't, maybe him, but he might be a weekend guy they save. The two that pop into mind for me, at least, Christian Rodriguez, and then Nico Jansen's is the other one.
Yeah, and I'm thinking too, the Pierce Coppell injury. I'm just curious if that has any effects. It's a blister, right? We still don't know if he's available this weekend or has he been ruled out.
That I have not checked. As of right now, he still hasn't played or anything like that. So I wouldn't be 100% on him playing this weekend.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up, I'm curious if you're going to need to fill his spot. He's been going deep into games for a team that really, I mean, like you look at Alabama. Alabama's throwing like 20, 21 guys, something like that. There are a few teams in this league that are throwing a lot of guys right now. And then you got Florida, which is really not throwing as many.
Right.
Although I look at it now, the pitch counts are piling up for some of these guys. It probably more so than I thought. So the Gators are developing a little bit of depth. I feel like out of the chute, they went to 7 or 8 guys. Now some other guys are taking turns. So perhaps strike that a little bit. But if Coppell is not available this weekend, then I would think that could affect just a little bit what Florida does, at least in terms of guys going deep into games, right? You can still throw a guy, 20 pitches on a Tuesday, and that probably won't affect your availability for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. But if you get extra innings or something like that, we could see a little bit of a domino effect there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and they've had, that was a problem earlier. They've had a lot of people at least make an appearance at this point now. So I think they've worked their way out of it. Again, I think you kind of hear some stuff about Coppell's injury just because of who they play, or you infer at least, what's happening by who they play. So that's something to watch out for Gator fans.
Graham's popped in here. Good morning, sir.
Hey.
Morning. Just got back from the doctor's office.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Well,
we're talking.
It was for the 2-month-old, but
gotcha.
Report.
Well, we're jumping right into Florida State talk here in the probably the biggest midweek game of the college baseball season so far. State hadn't played a lot of people so far, but I'm really impressed, as an aside, how quickly Florida State has turned it around. Is not the word, adjusted, I guess, because they lost some dudes to the draft last year, including, I think, Cam Smith, their third baseman, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
They did. I mean, they did return probably the pitcher of the year in the ACC.
Yeah, Jamie Arnold.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't win it. Also, Link Jarrett's a really good coach. I mean, he had options and he played at Florida State and wanted to go back there. And I mean, it's kind of remarkable what they've been to Omaha 33 times, something like that. And they've never won the whole thing. So that's incredible.
Lineup-wise, go ahead. I'm sorry, Alfred.
I was going to say, this is not confirmed, but my guess for their starter will be Evan Crest. I think he's been their midweek guy because their rotation's been Volini, Arnold, and Mendez in some kind of order. So Evan Crest, I think, is going to start for them.
And obviously, they won't see Jamie Arnold today. That kid's a treat to watch if you haven't seen. He's got a kind of unique delivery. A little bit of Tim Lincecum and a little bit of Chris Sale in there, as I see it. So, yeah, Crest has been really effective for them so far. Not a high strikeout guy, though. It's interesting. Florida, I've noticed, too, does not walking a ton. I thought maybe you'd see a little bit more of that this year. It's I wouldn't call it – Florida's not really a high strikeout team. They put the ball in play a little bit more than I thought, but not a team that, like Texas A&M 2022 or Tennessee this year that's going to just – walk you off the charts, which is what makes for 3.5-hour midweeks. But anything else on the Gators and Florida State this morning before maybe we jump into some surprise stuff that we've seen in the SEC almost a month in?
I think if it is Crest it is Barlow, but if it's Barlow and Crest, I think it's just going to be which guy can go deeper. I think that'll be really key in this game because once one lineup gets going, it'll be hard for that opposing pitcher to stop them.
Yeah, it should be a really fun matchup. And then Alfred, I think you put it out on social media. This is Florida State's first time, even though they're undefeated. This is their first Power 4 opponent to play. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah. Their biggest win is South Florida so far this year.
Yeah, so that's a little weird. They haven't played a Power 4 team yet, but I'm looking forward to it. Should be a fun matchup.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Greeson's jumped in. Good morning, sir.
How are y'all today?
We're good. We're talking some Florida State. We're probably about to move on to storylines in the SEC that have caught our eye so far. There was one more thing I was going to bring up. Yeah, Barlow third on the team in innings pitched. So durability, he hits the check in that box. Although Florida State, it's funny. I've always thought that was kind of a bandbox of a park. I've been there before. They've still got the chain link fence in right field, don't they?
At Florida State?
Yeah.
I believe so. And they got the Circus 10 out there as well.
Yep. In right field or past right field. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a weird setup.
Yeah. It's a cool environment though. I've been there twice. So they care about their baseball for sure.
Yeah.
I think my favorite story from that joint is the day that Dion hit a home run into the right field bleachers and then went and won the ACC 100-meter dash in baseball pants.
Oh, man. Baseball pants?
Well, typical
baseball pants.
Wow. That's crazy. And the circus, it's no joke. Florida State has a campus circus that it puts on. It's campus run. It is. I've never seen it, but that's something you don't see every day. So,
worst butt whipping I ever got was at the Whataburger in Tallahassee. Auburn was playing football there, and I was running my mouth, and three dudes just beat me to a pulp.
How long ago was this?
This would have been the fall of either 89 or 90, whenever Auburn went down there. May have had a cocktail or three, and may have been a little bit full of myself.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. About the hottest place.
I've been here like 4 minutes, and I've completely derailed any flow y'all have. So I'm sorry. Let's get the SEC baseball storylines.
I was going to say about the hottest place I've ever been was Tallahassee at a super regional. I mean, it was murderously hot. So, yeah, let's get on to
$5. It was a softball tournament in Macon, Georgia.
Yeah.
And the smell doesn't help. I mean, all of our many fine friends in Macon, God bless you.
Oh, man. Your biggest fan, Sam, is in the chat here. Says hello to you, Jay. So with that, let's get into to storylines, things that have caught your eye that are surprising. I'll go Graham, Jay, Alfred, and then I'll give you a few of mine. So start us off here, Graham.
Things that are surprising. I guess one of the top storylines of anybody in the SEC, it's got to be A&M, right? I mean, they were unanimous number one by all the million polls in college baseball. And, you kind of knew it might be a learning curve here and there, especially with the youngest head coach in the SEC, first time head coach, anywhere. And you figure there'd be a learning curve, adjustments, but I don't think anybody anticipated this, losing what it was 4 in a row at one point, their longest losing streak since 2021. They're still super talented, but I would just say the start for Texas A&M, they lose one of the best players in the conference, an everyday player, and then just the start. It's kind of a rocky start for Texas A&M. Before we hit SEC play. So, who knows? They could flip a switch and, just be lights out in conference play. But to me, that would be the surprise, especially like the unanimous number one team in the country. And then what they're ranked, depending on what poll you look, they're like anywhere between 15 to 20.
I got a couple, but before we jump off of that one, yay or nay vote right here. If you had to bet that there was going to be an NCAA regional and College Station, you betting yay or nay?
I got it. Ask me in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but the odds are going to dip, Graham.
Yeah, that's true. I would say hosting a regional, sure. National seed right now, no, not so much.
That's my answer as well. Same thing.
I don't know, guys. I mean, they're 140 in the RPIs of this morning. That is a lot of ground to make up. Like if you're 70 or 80, it's maybe doable. I'm going to be watching that. Like, how big has the hole that A&M has dug there? How much does that factor in?
And it's about to get a heck of a lot tougher, Chris.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like they have played just a murderous schedule. I'm going to let me pull this up just to verify it, so I'm not speaking out of ignorance. I mean, Elon and Cal Poly are respectable programs, but they didn't. Gosh, they won a run game over Cal Poly on a Saturday before they dropped game 3-2. They did kind of boat race Elon early in the year, but since then they haven't scored. I mean, they scored 16 in game 2 against Elon, 12 in game 3, opening weekend. Since then, they have touched double-digit runs twice, and that was against bad Rice and New Mexico State teams. I mean, they're struggling. They
bad
scored.
Rice, friends. That's good knowledge. Stay away from bad Rice.
That might be what's bothering my family right now. I hope I don't get it too. But yeah, I don't know, man. The more unpacked, I know they're getting. Alfred, you're the one that talked about Caden Sorrell when he's coming back. What kind of timeline do we have on that?
SEC play is what I've been hearing. That's from good old Kendall Rogers at D1 Baseball.
Okay, so
SEC
that's coming.
Yeah,
which is going to help.
As far as the kind of surprise storyline for me, I'm going to leave the pinball machine that Tony V is driving for our man Alfred up there in Knox County. My number 2 surprise is Georgia's power, both in terms of arms and at the plate. But my number 1 surprise is probably how good Auburn's been, getting very little from their best player. I mean, Ike Irish hadn't done hardly anything, and Auburn's top half of the league in most offensive categories, and really just has superseded really any reasonable expectations for anybody not in the Thompson family.
Auburn's a good pick, Jay. Again, everything that could have gone wrong a season ago, that was the storyline for Auburn. We all kind of knew that they were talented, and if they were healthy, they would be better than what they were last year. But that they have been really, really good, especially offensively through the first 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah. My surprise, guys, if I had to go with one, I think it's a surprise how good he's done. I don't know if it's a surprise that he is good, but how good he's done has been a surprise. Justin LeBron. This was a guy who was a freshman All-American last year. He is, I touched on this on social media yesterday. He is completely just catapulting his numbers from a year ago. You look at it, he's batting almost 400, has a slugging percentage of 1,000, getting on base at over 50% at over a 50% rate. Home runs too. I didn't realize this. He is 1 away from the total he had last year, already on March 11th. So this is a guy who, again, we're talking number 1 pick in the draft, not this upcoming draft, but in 2026. And then I don't know if it continues at this rate, he will start to get into the Golden Spikes conversation at least a little bit. So that's my thing with Justin LeBron. Interested to see how he does with SEC play and SEC pitching, but thus far, man, has just completely blown what I thought he'd do out of the water.
Well, hey, look, I think Golden Spikes conversation here in the second week of March is premature, but if you're going to have it, he's absolutely got to be in there, hitting the way he's hitting. He's got 1,000 slugging percentage, and he's a shortstop. I mean, are you kidding me?
Right.
But I think my biggest surprise maybe is his team, Alabama, because it's not just Justin LeBron, guys. Jason Torres from Miami has hit well for them. That was a little bit of a question. And coming into the season, I was kind of agnostic on Alabama. I think I picked them maybe 13th out of 16. But the reason was I just didn't know, right? I mean, it's not just the fact that you're playing in a killer league, but like, who are these guys, right? You've got Coleman Mizell's in a bigger role, Richie Bonamalo Jr., JUCO transfer, Bryce Fowler, JUCO transfer. You never know how that's going to factor in. You've got 3 other transfers in the lineup. Brady Neal, who I thought might be the best, the LSU catching transfer. He's actually maybe their worst hitter in the lineup, and he's not having a bad season. You've got Brennan Norton, Garrett Staten. Staten's not playing a lot, but Norton is. Norton's having a nice year for them. I just did not know how those guys were going to hit because we hadn't seen them hitting this level. And then they're pitching. Braylon Myers has been really good for them out of the pen. He's stepped up a little. Riley Quick has been kind of what we hoped Riley Quick would be. Zane Adams has been good. And they've thrown – I mean, the list of guys they've thrown is probably longer than anybody in the league. So to me, Alabama, if I had to pick biggest surprise – and again, Alabama has not played a killer schedule, but it's hard to go 16-1 under any circumstance. And so I'm just really impressed. I mean, we talked to Rob Vaughn before the season. With his track record, we should never count them out overachieving. Their blueprint is let's go find kids that nobody else wants because that's what he was, and let's make him into something. He has excelled at that. He's excelled at it. So I shouldn't say I'm surprised that Alabama has done this well. I'm not surprised Alabama's done well. I am surprised Alabama's done this well because I just didn't know what we were getting coming into the year.
Yeah, would not have guessed that they're a one-loss team heading into SEC play whatsoever. So that part is surprising to me as well.
And the one loss just happened too.
Right.
Yeah.
I think we got to mention, at least we knew they were going to be good, but Tony V's got a whole new cast of characters, man. I mean, you got to turn over – you lose that many dudes to professional baseball, and you're now this. You dare I say even a little more intimidating at the plate. I mean, I don't think we're going to be ever surprised that Tennessee's good in baseball as long as Tony V's in the 8-6-5. But, I mean, that's a whole core of freshmen doing some heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very much. Yeah. I mean, you did not – I think after losing – I'll rattle off the names of guys they lost. I mean, and we have Tennessee fans in the chat that know this, but Christian Moore, Blake Burke, Kavaris Tears, Billy Amick, Dylan Dreiling, the pitching staff, Drew Beam, Xander Sechrist, Kirby Cannell. There's more that I'm not naming. But, yeah, that's a slew of really good players from a team that won the national title. And here this team is really sitting as the number 1 team in the country and very within reach of doing it again as of right now if we had to pick somebody. So, yeah, super stoked for them. I think they have this Florida series is going to be important. If they play very well against that team, you know, the sky's the limit after that.
That's on TV, right, Alfred? Is that on TV this weekend?
Very well should be. I'll double check.
No doubt.
But yeah, very well should be. I would think it's going to. But SEC tournament stuff for basketball, I wouldn't. I don't know. I think it'd be. Although that stuff would be on ESPN at that point, right, Chris? So
what's the question?
It's normally like the first few games are SEC Network, and then like
Right.
the semifinals and championship are on ESPN stuff.
We're talking about Florida Tennessee series on TV,
Oh,
but with SEC tournament stuff. But SEC tournament at that point would be like ESPN.
Yeah, here
Here I'm looking at it from the SEC website. Saturday's Florida-Tennessee game, 6 p.m. start. That's Eastern, is on the SEC Network. And then Sunday, they've got Texas at Mississippi State at 2 and
Okay.
Alabama A&M at 5.
Okay.
Is our TV schedule this weekend.
okay.
Yeah. What that tells me is basketball is going to be on ESPN,
Right.
or ESPN2. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, like Tony Vitello, what it kind of reminds me of is like the peak Nick Saban Alabama days where like you knew they were going to be good, and it doesn't matter, you know, who's in the lineup. They just kind of reload, like whether it be a freshman or just a transfer portal guy. So they're on the verge of doing that. Not saying that Tony Vitello is going to win 8 national championships, anything like that, but kind of the peak Alabama days, and then what Kirby Smart was doing his first 2 national championships, where it's just like they're so talented, and they're going to be heavily in the mix.
Yeah, on the topic of Tennessee, I think my biggest surprise, I think we figured Liam Doyle was going to be better. We'd seen him as a top 50, top 75 draft prospect coming into the year. He's getting buzzed as 1-1 right now.
Wow.
And the numbers are staggering. 23rd innings pitched, a .44 ERA. He's allowing just over 1 runner every 2 innings. 3-0. He is striking out 69% of the hitters he faces, and maybe just as impressive. Well, not quite that impressive is that strikeout rate, but he's given free passes 7% of the time. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. The 4-seamer is just, he's working that thing letter high, and nobody's got a chance at it right now. I think that is one of my biggest individual surprises. And somebody brought this up in the chat. We knew he was good, right, based on where he was ranked out of high school. But Levi Clark right now, per plate appearance, guys, I think is the most productive hitter in the SEC. The numbers are staggering: 5.13 average, 6.36 on base percentage, and at a 10.77 slugging with 6 home runs, 23 RBIs. He is creating 33 runs per 27 outs. Based on the thing built, and that's just that's the highest number in the league so far. I mean, by comparison, we talked about Justin LeBron. His number there is 18.
That's like
and we're talking about LeBron
is kind of dominance. To throw a name from the past, that's just like, hey, everybody,
Walker,
just
yeah.
Todd Helton, even if we're
Todd Helton, yeah.
Good Lord.
That's at Liam Doyle too. That opposing batting average, I don't know if you guys see that, below 100, 0.095 right now is what people are hitting against him. So
yeah,
someone's got to figure that out before it gets pretty bad. And we'll see if it does. But even Manny Marin, man, I mean, a batting average above 400, on base percentage almost at 500, and a couple home runs this year, 6 RBIs. He's right there, as a freshman with Levi Clark doing his thing. So, yeah, Jay said it. You did not think freshmen were going to be the guys on this team to be doing what they're doing, but here they are.
Yeah,
Liam Doyle could almost do the remember the Eddie Feiner King and his court softball team, where it was him and 3 guys. He can almost do that right. Only 24% of the batters against him have put the ball in play. Like they're either walking, striking out, or hitting it out of the yard.
Smyrna one time, and he threw so hard underhanded that he'd whip it and then throw it into his own glove right here, and the catcher would pop his mitt, and everybody thought it, and the umpire would call it a strike, and the guy standing at the plate would get all embarrassed. He'd go, "Oh, that was high," and the King still holding the softball on the mound. I mean, it was that guy was a circus, man.
He threw like 104 underhanded, didn't he?
Yes. Yeah.
And you're coming at it from
what?
How many feet? Yeah, look it up. I mean,
45.
Yeah. They were like the Harlem Globetrotters. I never saw him, but just hear the story. They were like the Harlem Globetrotters of softball. Just to give everybody a chance, they would field a 4-man team. He on the mound, they had, I think, a first baseman, a catcher,
and like maybe a left center fielder.
Yeah, and you still couldn't beat them. I mean, the list of baseball Hall of Famers he struck out is like that long.
So
that's
kind
great.
of like Savannah Bananas today.
Yeah,
a lot like that.
Yeah,
and he threw so hard that he could position the outfielder and take enough off of it to really just almost Maddox-esque. You've heard the story about, like, Leo Mazzoni went out to tell Greg Maddux to walk Luis Gonzalez, and Maddux said not only no, but bleep no, because Maddux has one of the foulest mouths in Major League Baseball history. And he said, give me 2 pitches, and I guarantee you I'll get him to pop up to third base. First pitch is a fastball inside. Second is that little diving cutter away, hits a pop-up to Chipper, and Maddux passes Mazzoni on the way there and goes, told you so.
Did you ever see the skit that he did with Chris Bryant?
Yes, it was great. Where he dressed up like a janitor or whatever.
No, he was Chris Bryant. They'd got him out there on the premise of doing, I don't know what. He's filming an instructional video or something.
It was a Red Bull.
Yeah, Greg Maddox is dressed. He's got a beard disguise on, and he's dressed up as he's the cameraman, and like the batting practice pitcher can't find the zone, and Maddox is like, "Here, let me try." And after a few minutes, Chris Bryant was just laughing. He's like, he knows something's up, but he's not sure what. So that was gold.
It's on it's worth it.
Yeah,
to watch.
yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, and really the whole Tennessee lineup's that way. I mean, Manny Marin is that way. And that'll be a storyline to watch too. Is like, where does that lineup settle? Because you got, I mean, the number of playable hitters right now. You got Fisher, Kylan, Curley, Chapman, Inslee, Clark, Bargo, Manny Marin, Peebles, Chris Newstrom, Grimmer, Lawless. That's more guys than you've got room for. And I didn't even get to Ariel Antigua, who's their shortstop, who's not much of a hitter, but he can field. And like they used him as a defensive replacement a lot last year. You saw him start a little bit this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is the one thing that I wonder. You've seen their infield being a little transitory. Fisher's moved around. I think they played Curley at third last game, didn't they? Or am I dreaming that?
Someone checked that. I'm not sure, but that's probably why their fielding numbers have been kind of wonky.
Yeah,
just because of all the transit stuff they're doing with it. So that's just something to note. But that's who cares with the way this game is playing, quite frankly.
Where I think that's relevant, I am wondering when they play a Vanderbilt or a Kentucky, if teams are just going to bunt them to death. Mm-hmm. And say, we're going to make you field it and get it. Teams that can do that and teams with speed. I am watching a little bit that, and I can't read Tony Vitello's mind, but I'm guessing some of the defensive shifts are along those lines of thinking that, hey, we're not going to be able to just overwhelm anybody and everybody, and we're going to run in some teams that can put it in play, and we're going to have to start getting some outs some different ways. So that's right. Been kind of interesting to see where they're shifting their defense.
How crazy is it? One last thing on Tennessee. How crazy is it to think that if they did it this way, you're talking Tennessee hosting West Georgia tonight, Tennessee would probably be about an 11.5 run favorite.
Yeah, well, and
it's a big number. Jeez.
Yeah. That's like football. That's like
it's
football.
It's a big number, but I think the number I have is Tennessee's aggregate totals right now are 71-13. Or that was last week. I'm sorry. That was last week. Last week was 71-13 and 5 wins.
Yeah.
Sam said get in West Georgia. So there you go. You heard it.
I like it, Sam. I like it.
I've got a thing I do. I kind of figure out runs per 27 outs, which is useful right now in the era of, and I don't know why this isn't more of a mainstream thing. Like even at the big league level, I think you win a disproportionate of number of home games, your offense isn't going to hit in the ninth inning. So that's a ninth of your potential production right there that's just gone. Well, let's take modern day college baseball into it.
Good point.
You are getting 6 innings to hit a lot of times if you're run ruling teams at home. And so you're losing out on 3 whole innings that you can hit. You've heard Tony Vitello complain about it a little bit. They're getting for 27 outs, they're scoring over 15 runs a game, and they're giving up right at 2.
It's not half bad.
Jay, by the way, go for it, Alfred.
I was going to say it's not half bad considering Tony's getting mad because he can't get reps in.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm sure he'll take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
What's the betting movement like for college baseball, Jay? Like, is it growing? Are we getting more eyeballs on it? What's that like?
Well, I think it's going to grow, but it's betting baseball is really betting Major League Baseball is a little more confusing to the average bettor because basketball, football, you've got point spreads. In baseball, it's more odds driven. So if Tennessee playing West Georgia, it's probably going to be minus, I don't know, 2,000, which means you got to bet 2,000 to win 100.
Right.
and it may even be minus 20,000 is the way they're rolling people. And those odds are not conducive. That said,
minus 20,000.
Yeah. If I had to against West Georgia.
Yeah. No, I know. I mean, it's just
outright.
So what would the payoff on that be?
$100. Bet 20,000 to win $100. I'll tell you a side story. I got a bunch of gambling stories, boys, but I'll tell you this side one. I could not get a guy to take a $10,000 bet to win $100 on a guy named Mike Tyson over Buster Douglas. Refused the bet.
Man.
Gave me 10 grand as a college kid.
Holy smokes.
You mean his dad paid you 10 grand?
No. Well, again, not to be Commander Derail here, I think the statute of limitations
some questions.
run out. But let's just say I was not a choir boy at Auburn University.
Hey, you made it work though. The rest is history. You gotta be pumped, right? This month alone is like the Super Bowl for sports betting.
This month is there'll be more money wagered on March Madness than any other sporting event, Super Bowl included. Now the Super Bowl is a single event that but you talk about bracket sheets and games and all 67 games. You count the play-in days. And then there are the wonderful stats on the number of computations to fill out a bracket and all the different ways you can fill out a bracket. My favorite one is if you stacked a piece of notebook paper, if you filled out every possible bracket on a piece of notebook paper, you could stack it from here to the moon 9.8 million times.
Wait, what?
It's a lot of brackets. That's a lot.
We're talking every bracket. Every
possible bracket, which is it's not even 68 factorial. It's because there's so many different ones going down. If you filled it out on a piece of copy paper and stacked it from here to the moon, you could do it. You could stack more than 9 million towers.
That's crazy.
That's a lot of times.
Hey, since we're talking about sports betting and we're baseball, give me your take on Pete Rose, especially since he's not with us anymore. Is he going to make it in the Hall of Fame?
Well, my stance has always been that he got a lifetime ban, and when his lifetime is over, they should put him in the Hall because his antics on the field prevented him from enjoying that, but his successes on the field should be part of the baseball narrative. He should be in the Hall now. Now that his lifetime is over. And I feel the same way about Shoeless Joe Jackson.
See, I don't agree.
For Pete or Shoeless Joe?
I could have a little more flexibility on Shoeless Joe. Pete, I just don't agree. To me, Pete Rose was a great player, a top, 50 player easily of all time, probably top 20 or 25. But to me, there's an honor component that goes in with it. And I'm sorry, I don't care if he was you go in a major league or minor league clubhouse, and one of the first things you'll see is a sign that says,
"Can't miss it.
Don't bet." You cannot miss it. It's the only rule in there, just about. And I'm sorry, but I get he was betting on his team.
Chris, what if he would have owned it like right out of the gates? What if he was like, "Yep, I did it," and he just owned it, as opposed to lying for decades and then he writes like, "Yeah, I did it."
I'd have to think about it and what it looks like. I still am inclined to say no, just because like you can wreck an arm of your ace reliever or ace relievers. Okay, I know he threw 20 pitches yesterday and 15 the day before, but I need 20 for him right now because if I don't get him, I'm going to lose a ton of money.
Well, see, I think the integrity part of that, Chris, is if you're betting on your team as the manager, you theoretically are betting against your team when you're not betting. Because how are you then going to manipulate your bullpen so that your guys you're better rested the next day? I mean, you may tank a Wednesday to know that you've got a good matchup on Friday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's always been my stance, Graham. It's a great question, and But I don't think in this, even though his lifetime's over, I think the modern culture and the way that the professional sports have leaned into sports betting because it's now legal in 38 states, and it's just the numbers are blowing everybody's mind. Yeah. There can be very little wiggle room. Like I think the Janante Porter kid at Denver who got caught betting on his player props and has been banished from the NBA, I think he's going to get like 20 years in prison.
Yeah, but I mean, what he did, man, you can't do that. Like,
yeah,
I mean, even he wasn't making that big of an impact. Like, you can't do what he was doing.
Have you guys seen the Terry Rozier clips out there? By the way,
oh yes, those are telling, Chris.
Gosh, that looked like me trying to do stuff out there. I mean, it was that bad. It really was.
It is bad, and it's got to be a worry item number 2 on the list of every commissioner in sports, because if the integrity of the game is compromised, then a lot of people are going to look at you like professional wrestling.
Yeah. See, I don't think we're anywhere near done with all that stuff. I
don't either.
I think there's Jay. You may have heard some of the same stuff. There's been some stuff brewing under the radar with that for a long time, and I'm interested to see if anything pops.
Well, and
soon. So it started to a little bit about college basketball.
We cater to already think there are conspiracies against their team or conspiracies to behoove Alabama football or behoove Kentucky basketball, or people talk about, well, the money's in play, and so they get the benefit of all the calls. If we find out that there are meaningful players, coaches, I mean, in retrospect, it's a little bit of a shocker that the Tim Donaghy stuff was not a bigger deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. It's going to happen, though. I don't care what sport, just because, like, it's so out in the open now. Like, I know for me, like, I do a lot of G League broadcast stuff. And, like, every year, I'm talking every year, I have to go to Memphis, sit down, and, like, sit in a room for 2 hours. And most of it is about, like, sports betting and sports gambling and, like, what you can and cannot do. So that's why they went so hard on the Porter kid, because, like, if they're doing it with me, they're doing it with the guys that actually play the game, and the consequences.
Yeah. Yeah, I will be very interested to see what comes out in the coming months. Because I do wonder if some of that has been dealt with under the rug, so to speak, Jay.
I think it would be most desirable to handle that outside the spotlight of guys who do what I do for a living. So because the less people know about those kind of things, the better. And here's the other thing. You're not going to get away with it in this day and age, because the DraftKings and the FanDuels and those things have such analytics and such locators on your accounts. But it would also, if they're going to find it first, and to your point, Chris, it is in their best interest to keep it quiet as a church mouse too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the SEC in particular is really good at keeping its business to itself. And a lot of stuff that's out there never hits the internet, the papers, podcasts, anything. They deal with everything very privately, and you don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm. The only thing that I've seen that come out, and it came out yesterday, actually, I don't know if you guys even saw it, but Mississippi State women's basketball, how like women's basketball teams, they practice against like 5 or 6 guys. One of the guys that practices against Mississippi State women's basketball, he got caught gambling on games, and that's a violation for Mississippi State. He's not even on the team, and like that news came out yesterday, and it kind of flew under the radar just because there's so much going on right now. But I promise you, he's not the only one to do something like that.
Yeah,
but you don't think half the trainers in the league have got some some guy who looks a lot like me and sounds a lot like me answering the phone at the Beta House. I mean, of course they do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think we have injury reports now for football, men's and women's basketball, baseball in the SEC?
Yeah.
Which is smart, because the only way to fight the shadowy images and characters in the gambling ring, and I say that as one of them, is to offer as much transparency as possible. Because if everybody knows Janai Broom's out with a turned ankle, there's no insider information.
Well, let me use flash. You know this too, Jay. That doesn't. It's supposed to all get disclosed. It does not.
That's true too.
No, I've had conversations.
I know of one right now. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had conversations with somebody in this league, and I'm not going to say the team name or what sport, but the person that types in the information, he said, like, he'll type in the information and then the lines will move on the game.
Man.
Instantly, and it's instant. It's not like you got to wait 12 hours or something like that. It's instant.
Wow.
Okay. That reminds me of a funny story before we get out of here. I know we have completely derailed from SEC baseball talk, but in the newsroom, you used to have to, it wasn't just all done on computers. You used to have to cut and paste and line item and do all these other things in the mock-ups. Well, on our mock-up pages, we had a supremely competitive fantasy baseball league. And one guy in our league was trying to get a trade for, I think it was Shawan Dunston. And
man.
So he typed up Shawan Dunston to miss multiple weeks with a knee injury and put it in the baseball roundup on the mock-up page. He didn't get it in the actual paper. He just did it in the mock-up page and left it on this guy's desk who had Shawan Dunston. So he then picks it up, sees it, calls this guy and goes, "Hey, man, I'll take that Shawan Dunston trade." All right, good deal.
That is fantastic. Oh, man. Wow. Where do we even go from here? I have an idea. Let's just circle back. Just random things that have caught your eye, good and bad, in the SEC this year. Surprises, things of note that's not being talked about, all those things. Alfred, you get first crack this time, then Jay, then Graham, then I'll give you a few.
Graham, I might steal your thunder here. Ole Miss, I don't think we've mentioned them yet, and I think they're worth mentioning as a one-loss team. You know, I think everyone kind of knows Georgia's one loss team. Alabama, even, I think, is, someone talked about as a one-loss team. Ole Miss has kind of just been, cruising with one loss, and they've been doing very well. Ryan Moorman is one of those transfers in the outfield. He's leading the team in hitting, continues to do really well this year. With how he's played 8 doubles this season, 6 home runs. Luke Hill right up there. He was great in Arlington when I saw him. That's continued throughout the rest of the year. Granted, I think maybe the competition since that Arlington series has taken a little bit of a fall off, but they've played some half-decent, tough mid-majors. They had Murray State in there who was heading into that midweek game. They played undefeated. Jacksonville State, the Conference USA teams this year are no slouches at all. So Jacksonville State's someone who could give people a run for their money, although they've kind of struggled with the SEC. But that being said, super impressed with what I've seen from Ole Miss. Again, you're getting great performances out of transfers in the outfield. Judd Udermark is hitting, I think, 7 home runs this year, Graham, if you could correct me, something like that. So he's hitting the long ball pretty well. I mean, for how Ole Miss struggled last year under Mike Bianco, with this year being kind of a pressure year of sorts, they've answered the call, and I've been really impressed with what I've seen from them.
I think for all of the hand-wringing in College Station, I think they're doing cartwheels in Austin. First-year coach, you lose the season opener in extra innings, and then you rattle off 13 straight. So, I mean, I think we knew Texas had a lot of talent, but to really kind of make some hay while College Station is spinning makes their success even doubly enjoyable. And knowing that you lured their guy away after getting to the final out of the College World Series a year ago, I think if you're a Texas baseball fan, you are exceedingly pleased.
Yes.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to piggyback on Alfred. One thing I will mention, remember, Ole Miss was picked preseason 15th in the league. And right now in one poll, I think they are as high as number 11. So the hire of Joel Mangrum, the pitching coach, that's been a difference maker for Ole Miss this season. And they've hit on their transfer portal kids, mainly the outfielders like Alfred touched on. So Ole Miss is definitely, I think, surprising some folks after missing the NCAA tournament the last 2 years. They're off to a good start before SEC play.
Building
Yes,
off
Alfred.
Jay, one more time, a player who's surprised me at Texas and who I think if we were doing all SEC teams today would be very hard to keep off that list is Ethan Mendoza. Would not have guessed he's the go-to bat for that team right now, and that's what he is. 429 average, on bases over 50%, slugging percentage right around 700, 4 home runs, a triple this year, 21 total hits. He's doing it all for Texas on offense, really being the main stimulant of Jim Schlossnagle's team, and just something I didn't expect from the Arizona State transfer.
Yeah, that's a great point. He was just kind of ordinary at Arizona State last year. That I don't think we've talked about him enough. I think a general theme for me is just that in an era where you can't keep the ball in the yard and it's hard to keep your guys in the game just because the era so favors offense, I'm really surprised at the number of pitchers who are going deep into games as starters. And I'll give you a few examples. And I think there's been so many of them. We haven't always been giving these guys their credit. Like I look down at Mississippi State. Pico Cone, Ben Davis have been doing a great job of eating some innings and not allowing much at all. High strikeout rates for both those guys. Cody Bowker at Vanderbilt, don't think we've been talking about him much at all. He's throwing really well for them out of the 3-hole on Sundays. I feel like every team's got one, if not two of those guys, which I would not have really expected. Some teams have maybe got even 3 or 4. That's why I'm still really high on LSU. I think LSU's got more guys who can go multiple innings effectively out of that starting spot than anybody in the league. So keep that in mind. And I'll tell you the team that I think is flying under the radar a little bit, and I've mentioned this before, but I think it's worth mentioning it again. Nick Mingione is doing the same thing at Kentucky that he's been doing, guys. They're not striking out. They're taking a lot of walks. They put the ball in play. They've stolen 43 bases. And pitching-wise, they got a 188 ERA. Now, they've been giving up some unearned runs, so that's something to watch. But they're good usually defensively. They got Tyler Bell up the middle. Nobody is talking about Kentucky.
Nope.
And the schedule has not been great, but I'm telling you, you take the blueprint the last 2 years, it's playing out right in front of your eyes again. And we'll see if he can pull that off in conference play.
Yeah, I think he'll take this in a heartbeat just because this is what they've done. Like you said, the last, 2 years ago, it was Super Regionals. Last year, it was Omaha first time. So this has been the formula for Kentucky.
Yeah.
Steals, and it seems like last year, too, pitching staff-wise in the league, right? Like it was like Tennessee, maybe one other person, and then Kentucky was sitting right there for a lot of the year. So it's mirror images of each other as of right now.
All right, let's do quick parting thoughts. Alfred, Jay, Graham, and then back to me, and we'll end this thing today.
Best midweek game of the year tonight. I think so far, and really total with Florida State going at it. I think it just means a lot to these two teams, to Florida. The Gators, I think Kevin O'Sullivan's team is chomping at the bit, no pun intended, for this week. I mean, you have Florida State and then Tennessee on the weekend. I talked about it with Chris, guys, before Graham and Jay jumped on. This is if there's any RPI week to have, this is the RPI week to have if you're Florida, and a chance to really, really get a good resume, on your desk, so to speak. So, that's who I'm watching. I think they're the team to watch this week with who they're playing. Super excited for tonight and super excited to watch them throughout the week.
And I imagine later in the week we may get together and kind of preview some of these series a little bit. But in regards to tonight, I got a kind of a little bit of a different spin, Alfred. I think this game means – I think there are a lot of folks in the ACC headquarters dying for this win because the SEC is not afraid to pump its chest and bang its, slap each other on the back and talk about how great our league is and this, that, and the other. The ACC's got a whole bunch of teams ranked too, and this is dude on dude here tonight. So the ACC's got a whole lot of skin in this game as well.
They do. In my opinion, they're a little bit more top heavy than the SEC, but they're clearly the second best conference baseball wise. I guess for me, like this weekend, the most fascinating matchup, the best matchup is this Tennessee-Florida series. Most intriguing is Alabama A&M for a variety of reasons. Is Alabama for real? Will A&M bounce back? And then I guess the third tier, another interesting matchup is Arkansas, Ole Miss. Ole Miss, if Ole Miss was able to win this series, they got Missouri week 2 of SEC play. So you're looking at Ole Miss getting off to a really, really good start in SEC play with Mizzou coming up after Arkansas. Those would be 3 things that stand out to me.
Yeah, a few things I wanted to bring up. Had on the show plan, we got a little sidetracked, which is fine because I think it was fun. But some other midweek games today. You've got Ole Miss, South Alabama. South Alabama, a team that's been pesky at times in a regional a lot. I want to see what Ole Miss's pitching can do today, how the bullpen depth holds up. Can they close out a game at the end? That's been an issue from time to time. Alabama UAB, you've got the in-state rivalry. That one is in Birmingham, so that one could be a tricky spot at times. And a couple more that caught my eye. Mississippi State and Old Dominion, that one in Biloxi. Old Dominion just came off a 3-game series with, who was it, guys?
Auburn.
Played Auburn, right. And I think took one of the 3. ODU, a team that's in the regional some. I'll be interested again. I'm always kind of watching midweek pitching to see who's stepping up and emerging and all that stuff. So that's one to circle. Old Dominion could be a little bit tricky. And hey, you've got a UT. I think, is that Texas San Antonio? Oh, it's Texas Arlington. Okay, Texas San Antonio is the team that beat Texas A&M last week. So scratch that one. I was going to say you could see another upset, but wrong school there. And Xavier LSU. Xavier kind of got its hat handed to it between Vanderbilt and Tennessee. Xavier's playing, I believe, its first 21 games on the road, and now playing at LSU, which has been a little uneven at times in the midweek. That's a team that struggled out of the gate there some. So I would say those are games to keep an eye on. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap all those up. We're going to be doing previews of weekend series. I think we're going to do a separate preview for Tennessee, Florida. Might work on a separate one for Arkansas too, and then we'll probably just do a free-for-all on the rest of those. We're scrambling a little bit just to coordinate schedules. And, of course, I will be at the SEC tournament in basketball for most of the rest of the week. I might even do some shows from the press area in basketball here. We never know how it's going to pan out. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. God bless you all. For Alfred Ezman, Jay Greeson, Graham Doty, I'm Chris Lee. You've been watching SEC baseball content here at Southeastern 16.